وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي، فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره حمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه، ولا يزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستانسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أرضى عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي، بإحسانك إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين ربي العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح بالجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعدا فلا يرى وقربا فشهدا النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبين الظالمين مدركي الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخي المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم صل على علي أمير المؤمنين وصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبي العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سلطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي. حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائما. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعزز به ذلتنا وأغن به عائلنا واقض به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع اشف به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقدان نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل وبضر تكشف ونصر تعز وسلطان حق تظهر ورحمة منك تجللنا وعافية منك تلبسنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
So now I'd like to ask Fatima Sajjan to come up and say a couple words.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Let's try that again. Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh Mirza, my respected elders, sisters and brothers, thank you for joining us for these past 5 nights. On behalf of the Organization for Islamic Learning, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to all the people that helped make this Ramadan program a success. especially the positive feedback that we've received from all our members. Hopefully, oil has been able to create an opportunity for us to spiritually strengthen and center ourselves through the amal and supplication over these nights. The turnout this year has been encouraging, and your generous contributions go a long way in helping us with our future programs, so jazakallah. On behalf of the organization, we acknowledge the volunteers for their time and commitment in helping with the program. And I'd like to recognize our board members. For those of you who've met them over these past few nights, hope you had a chance to hear from them why they're involved and hopefully be encouraged by their involvement. And if you haven't had a chance to meet them, then I encourage you to do so tonight. Brother Abdulaziz Dewji is the chairman of the organization. He is currently observing Ramadan overseas, and he sends his salams and du'as to all of you. Myself, I'm the vice chair. We have Brother Raza Hirji, who's standing in the back corner. He's our treasurer. Sister Maryam Rajbali as a secretary, along with Sister Mubaraka Alam. We have Sister Ithrat Kizilbash, who spearheads our Syrian relief project Hope. We have Hasnain Sajan, who is sitting right here at the front, who oversees our tech support and IT. We also have Sister Atia Essen, who is our recent recruit. So please have a chance to meet them, and inshallah you will want to join the board as well. I'd also like to thank the owner of Taj Banquet Hall, Brother Haji Muhammad, for accommodating us in these nights. And so to Maryam Rajbali, our Master of Ceremonies, we can't thank you enough for doing such a good job of keeping us on schedule every night, so thank you. Sheikh Mirza, I don't know what I can say. Thank you for a thought-provoking and spiritually uplifting series of lectures this Ramadan. We acknowledge with gratitude for you to accommodate us given your busy schedule. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all your efforts, and may He bless your family and yourself in this life and the next. Ameen. We also thank Dr. Shomali for his recommendation of Sheikh Mirza to come to join us for these few nights, and for giving him time off from the Islamic College to be with us. We also thank the family of Mir Abid Khan for accommodating Sheikh Mirza, for their hospitality, accompanying him every night, and for their patience in staying every night, as it was quite long. So thank you to all of you as well. Finally, we are very proud of our tech team. So we'd like to thank each and every one of our IT and tech team that you see here, who are quiet, working behind the scenes. We have Hussein Uncle Amarsi, who is passionately protecting the mic system, as you can see. We have Murtaza Uncle Alu, Murtaza Jafar, Murtaza Alu, who have been helping along with the rest of the IT team, who are Hasnain Sajan, Hasnain Kareem, Jabir Rustam, Arif Rai, Jihan Shirazi, and Muhammad Abbas Taki. You'll notice in these banquet halls there typically is no internet, but these guys are so talented that they've managed to live stream every single one of our programs so that more people can have access to it and benefit from it. So thank you very much. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Masima Amersi and Zainab Chagani for all their help in coordinating the niyaz and all the wonderful treats they bring every night. So please make special dua for them when you're breaking your fast. And finally, they say that in the month of Ramadan, your good deeds are doubled when you do charity. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our Ramadan goal was 20,000, and we've raised 8,000. So tonight is the 23rd night. And you have an opportunity tonight to double your good deeds. So before you leave, while you're sitting here, focus on what Sheikh is saying, but also think about how much you would like to contribute before you leave these doors. We can take credit card, cash, check, and we have 2 laptops at the back. So you can see he's already standing. If you want to go now, you can go now. But it would really help us a lot to keep these programs going. So that's all. So consider that. And I'm so sorry. I had your name written down too. I'd like to thank Sister Ruxana Jessa for helping out as well. Every night sitting at the front desk, so I didn't have to. So thank you very much for all your help. And if we can have a please a loud salawat for all our volunteers. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And with that, I'll pass it back to Maryam.
My job is very simple now. I just have to ask the Sheikh to come up and speak. So, salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبله وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب إله رب العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم الكتاب المجيد في سورة بقرة verse number 124 chapter number 2. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when Ibrahim was tried by his Lord with commands and he fulfilled them, God said, "Indeed, I will make you an imam for the people." Ibrahim said, "And my descendant?" God replied, "My covenant does not include the wrongdoers." Sadaq Allahu al-Aliyyul Azim. Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If we can go to lecture 4, inshallah, which the slides were remaining from that. As we were actually tonight is the last discussion that we'll have on this. The phenomena of ubudiyah, servitude, translated as servitude or servantship, if you want to call. As we said in the very beginning, the point which is completely opposite to God is ubudiyah. Because ubudiyat or servitude is full of limitation. And on the other side, you have full of kamal and perfection, which is God. So when a soul voluntarily, as we were talking about, involuntarily there is as well, because everything is limited, when a soul manifests or reflect or show his humility and humbleness to God, accepts the commands of God, the teachings of God, and the way God wants him to function, that is considered as ubudiyat. That is servitude, where he surrenders to the will of God. Even it could be so that it is outside our calculation and our understanding. Isa speaking in the cradle is not logical. But still, when it comes to ubudiyat, when it comes to servitude, we say that Quran says, and Isa was the prophet, and he spoke in the cradle. We accept. That is ubudiyat. ubudiyat on the intellectual realm. Having said that, Quran and the teachings of the Ahl Bayt and the Prophet and Islam is a very logical, intellectual faith. But consider this to be as a paradox. And we have a lot. And that is the beauty of it. Because we say God is Hadi, God guides. But at the same time, we say God is Mudil, God misguides. Well, take it or leave it, so to speak, So the same way, when we ponder and contemplate, reflect upon these Islamic principles, we would find that there's a lot of sort of opposites existing within. But the point is our understanding and how we take this. You have the aspect of mercy of God to the maximum capacity, but at the same time, you have the aspect of hope and fear of God. The sixth Imam clearly says that man flies to God, a human being flies to God with two wings. One wing is of hope, and the other wing is of fear. So you have to have a balance. If one becomes very fearful, just be afraid of God, have no hope, that is not a perfect flight. If one becomes very hopeful, have no fear at all, that is not a perfect flight. You have to have that balance. And the Ahl Bayt alayhimus salam and the Quran teaches us that. You would find the aspect of mercy, the aspect of, mercy of God Himself, as we mentioned that on the Day of Judgment, even Shaitan will imagine that God is so merciful today that He will even forgive him. That's the mercy of God. That's how He's merciful. The angels will be taken an individual towards the hellfire, and that individual turns back and look. Then God says, stop right there. They say, why? He was a criminal, he was whatnot, and we are about to throw him in the hellfire. Then God asks that individual, why did you turn? He said, I had hope in you. I thought you will forgive me. And said, that's it. He's forgiven. Right? So you have that mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and mercy of Allah overwhelms His ghazab. Because He's Rahman and Rahim. And this is the night. And tonight is the night of that forgiveness. Obviously, for those who have been trying very hard, trying to keep themselves, on the path, for them this nuraniyat, this mercy multiplies. Why not be the case where Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, the most perfect of the perfect soul, right, who says in Dua Abu Hamda Thumali, O Lord, I fear and I cry of that day where I will be raised naked from the grave. I cry for that day where my body will be turned by the person who is bathing me. Right? So if he is connecting to God through these words after even being perfect, obviously the mercy multiplies. The levels are increased. So to whatever level, we all have tried to fast. We all have tried to do worship. We all try to do good work. And God compensates that. God will multiply on this special blessed night, which is the night of Qadr. Now moving on further, now this state of ubudiyat, right, this station of ubudiyat, which is an individual where surrenders, submits, humiliate oneself in front of God, then God raises him. God raises him to a level where he starts reflecting God, as we discuss. He starts having that certainty and yaqeen, Hazrat Ibrahim and the story of the birds. Right? Where he becomes one with God. He annihilates in God. And he becomes the source of the mercy of God. He becomes that channel itself. That's how these Anbiya and Awliya are chosen, are taken. He reaches to a point, as we said, that he starts seeing God. In Dua Arafah of Imam Hussein, we recite, right, that the reason I believe in you is because I araftuka anta dallaltani alayk. You have showed yourself to me. The knowledge or the understanding, the reason I know is you is because you have showed yourself to me. Because there is nothing existing. If I use, in the very dua we say, if I use any other proofs to really reach to you, he says that even these proofs are limited. How can they really even make you to reach you? Because they themselves are limited. Right? So I know you because you have showed me. God shows himself. And then one believes in God. This in philosophy is known as burhan-e-lim. There are two burhan, there are two proofs, or there are two ways of reaching God. And the du'as tend to reflect that. Allahumma arifni nafsak. فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تَعَرِّفْنِي نَفْسَكَ لَمْ أَعْرِفْ نَبِيَّكَ. Oh Allah, make me know you directly, without the signs. Although God says that there are signs, سَنُورِهُ مِنْ آيَاتِ فِي آفَاقِ وَأَنفُسِ. There are signs in the afaq, in the horizon, within themselves. حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ حَقٍّ. And it will be explained, or it will be showed to them, haqq, the truth, and they will believe. By looking at the signs, we'll say God exists. Hazrat Ibrahim, for example, that method, he saw the moon, he saw the sun, he saw the stars, and then finally, right? That is one approach. This is known as, in philosophy, burhan-e-in. But there's another which is burhan-e-lim, where God himself shows direct connection and knowing God. And a human being fluctuates in between these two realities. Sometimes with the proof, by reading, by understanding, and sometimes all of a sudden God shows himself. That increases his daraja, his ma'rifah, and his understanding. Right? So here in this dua, like as we said very briefly, the translation, Oh Allah, make me know you. If I know you, then I will know Rasul. Oh Allah, make me know Rasul. If I know Rasul, then I will know the Hujjat, the Imam. Oh Allah, make me know the Hujjat. If I don't know the Hujjat, if I don't know the Imam, then I'm gone astray in my deen. Then I have lost it. But where does it begin from? It begins from the ma'rifat of God, from knowing God first. If I know God, then I will know Rasul. If I don't know God, then I will be doubting Rasul. Then I will be, having sort of my mixed understanding or whatever in regards to Rasul. If I don't know Rasul without knowing God, then I will have doubts in the Hujjat itself. How can it be possible that he is alive and living up until now? How can it be possible that a 7-year-old could become an Imam? It doesn't make sense. It is completely illogical. When a person reaches the age of bulugh, puberty, at the age of finishing at 15, for example, for boys, and then he is able to lead the prayers. Now a 7-year-old, you're asking him to lead the ummah, and he's the Imam. Accept it. What is this? Where does this really come from? It's very unintellectual, if you want to call it, illogical to really believe into that. A 7-year-old could be an Imam. But if we have the true ma'rifat of God, we'll have the true ma'rifat of Rasul. And then if we have the true ma'rifat of Rasul, we'll have the true ma'rifat of the Imam. Then we will be surrendering to this thought that a 7-year-old could be an Imam. That a child could speak in the cradle. That example of Abu Basir, which I mentioned earlier. Abu Basir was a companion of the 6th Imam. The riwayat, or the narrations that comes from Abu Basir, as we said, are very irfani, very mystical narrations. Imam had trained his students in different fields. In theology, there was Hisham ibn Hakam. In jurisprudence, in fiqh, it was Zurara. Right? In irfan, it was Abu Basir. Abu Basir had turned blind. But he was a true believer in that wilayat, in that imamat. There was no ifs and buts. Right? For example, Zurara, you might have discussion of fiqh where Zurara questions the logic of Imam Sadiq, sometimes to the extent that where Imam was discussing about that those who were non-Muslims and they will be able to enter paradise, Zurara's, while discussing that, his voice were raised so much that they could hear outside in the kucha, in the alley, Imam Sadiq and Zurara debating. Although he believes in the Imam, but he's debating on the level of fiqh. Right? Hisham ibn Hakam in theology and kalam, right? Using his intellect, his philosophy to really discuss. Right? So here, Abu Basir was that irfani sort of element where riwayat and traditions are fascinating. And Imam also trained him, showed him that path, opened divine realities and mysteries for him. When he says that as he was blind, he cannot see, so many hajis, because he could hear. Imam said, look through my finger. So many pajis. There were so many animals circumventing the Kaaba. Because they were human beings, but in terms of their soul, they were not human beings. They were animals. And they saw, because soul have that reality to really, have an animalistic form. On the Day of Judgment, يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرِ, when the secrets will be opened up. وَسِيمَاهُمْ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ, the manifestation of that will be on their faces. Right? So Abu Basir once was in a marketplace, and the sixth Imam was with his companion. And the sixth Imam asked this companion, asked those people who are in the market, have they seen Abu Abdullah? They were walking past by him. Have you seen Abu Abdullah? They said, no, I don't know, I haven't seen him. And they left him. Some people were, rubbing the Imam. He was standing there, but they cannot see. Then the Imam said, look, Abu Basir is coming. Ask him. He said, what? He's blind. The people who have eyes cannot see you. The blind man will see you. Then Abu Basir, Imam said, ask him. So the Abu Basir comes, and this companion, have you seen Imam? And he says, I thought I am blind. He's standing next to you, can't you see him? The noor of wilayat is seen by a different eye. As the poet says that when you see yourself in the mirror, that is you but not you. The whole creation is God but not God. We see ourselves in the mirror, we think it's me, it's us. Yes, it is us, but it's not us at the same time. The same way the creation. You need that inner eye to see God, to see that noor and to see that light. So through servitude, through surrendering to the will of God, to the commands of God, which is quite painstaking, no doubt, and the reward is in accordance to the capacity of the individual that he suffers, right? And all concepts are beautifully interwoven. It's like a beautiful carpet. The threads, how they are nicely interwoven with each other to make it beautiful. And it has different flowers and shape. The reality is diversity is beauty. We have to appreciate diversity. A Persian rug or a rug which have different colors is more beautiful than a plain white cloth. So we have to appreciate diversity. Right? So when we look at diversity in many things, even in our narrations, riwayat and hadith, we see there's a lot of diversity in there, right? And they are all connected with each other. For example, just an example here, as I said, that it's a lot of suffering is needed. Ubudiyah, fasting is, suffering. Hungry, suffering, but it's ubudiyah, it's manifestation of that servitude. Hajj, traveling, so far is a bit of suffering, obviously. Right? There is a result, a fruit for that. When a soul is about to die, for example, he suffers. The Imam says that his sins are being forgiven. He's shedding his sins. Prophet, when he wants to go lead prayer, 2 people holding him to go. He's become weak before dying. Amirul Mu'mineen, the same. Face color change, pale yellow. sweating, right? There is suffering. Like as I said, we are visualizing and seeing this as suffering. When that child is about to be born, there's a lot of suffering. But he's entering into a new, different world, full of color, which is beautiful for him. So that transformation have that element of suffering. Ubudiyat have suffering. It just can't be that, okay, it's like drinking water. One have to suffer, right? So ubudiyat have that element of suffering in it. And it is important. I'm using a lot of stories here. When my principal, when we were studying in Qom, there was Ayatollah Bahauddini. Ayatollah Bahauddini was a great scholar, marhum, may Allah bless his soul. He was contemporary to, Imam Khomeini, same period. And a lot of things is mentioned in regards to him, that he had that third eye, he would lead prayers, for example. People will go from far places to attend his prayers. So anyway, very spiritual man, that ubudiyat. So our principal, Hashemian, others say Imam Khomeini, he goes to the Ayatollah to report. We have a big 5-star madrasa. I'm saying 5-star. We have a big madrasa in which we give breakfast, in which we give lunch, in which we give dinner. There is dry cleaners there. There is a facility for gym. There is a, haircutting salon there. So he's reporting to this big, big shot sort of Ayatollah, that thinking that, mashallah, very good. What a great job you guys are doing, masalan. For example, he was expecting that. In response, he said, قبلا طلبه کمی درس میخوندن و الان اونم نمیخونن. Previously, the students used to study a bit. Now, with all this which you are providing, you will not even study anything. So, Amirul Mu'minin clearly says that. If you want to gain knowledge, you have to suffer. And it's given in return to that. This is normal. Even in the secular sort of conventional sense, when our children go out in the dorm, leave their comfort of their home, so on and so forth, there's a bit of suffering there. All those who have achieved is after suffering. Innamal yusra, right? After suffering. This is the cycle. This is natural. So we cannot escape, the aspect of suffering. It has to be there, right? And it is something for good, something for higher. We are trained. Our heart expands. It has that capacity to endure, to face that consequences, whatever we face, with sabr and patience. Loss of life, loss of famine, right? So it expands us. Now, if you help me with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now finally, with this continuous suffering, by practicing, by showing humility and humbleness, God opens that reality to him, where he reflects and he's raised to a level which we talked about in this, the very beginning of the verse, imama, for example. He will reach to the level of imamat. If we can have that slide, brother. That is ubudiyah, further down, imama. Right. Yeah. So here, when he reaches that kamal of imamat, he becomes that imam for the mankind, for everybody, the leader. Now, why I'm discussing imamat, especially tonight being the night of Qadr as well, and what is the relationship of imamat with ubudiyat? The relations of imamat with servitude. When the imam have completely surrendered, rather than be qada'ihi wa tasliman li amri, Imam Hussein, whatsoever that may be the case, I am surrendering to it. Not a human intellect is capable of doing that. We have the hadith saying that when the news was brought to Fatima, Hussein is about to be born and he will be slain that way. Fatima said, I don't want. Which mother wants a child who wants to suffer like that? Tell me. No mother wants their children to suffer like that. So Fatima rejected it in the first place. She did not want. Then Prophet said, it is for this purpose. This is to save the deen. Then she said, okay, She surrenders to that will. She surrenders to it, and she's raised, right? So that when that sort of surrendering takes place from an abd, then he's raised to the level, he will have the capacity to really comprehend and understand, and he becomes that imam, he becomes that hujjat, he becomes that proof, whether that be a female as well. It's not just imam is not like male, the outward concept is that, but in terms of being the khalifa, being the vicegerent, being the representing God, Fatima is hujjat for us. She's a female figure. The imam says that Fatima is hujjat for us. Fatima is proof for us, right? So when imam reaches to that level, then the ubudiyat, the servitude, to the same servitude that we have for God, we have to have the same servitude for the imam. The same humbleness, the same acceptance of what imam is saying. Because the command of imam becomes the command of God. Because the command, that's why, that's what it is in the fiqh. They say, okay, imam says this way, so although it's not in the Quran, but imam have mentioned this way. So we take that as a law. We take that as, we practice that, right? If the authenticity and riwayat and hadith and whatsoever is there, right? So whatever the imam says, we just accept it, right? Without ifs and buts. Although, alhamdulillah, when we look at the insight that the imams have is purely intellectual. It's par excellence. It's beyond. It's not illogical. But at the same time, like I said, you have the aspect of which we regarded as paradox of that surrendering. A 7-year-old, an imam, yes, an imam, right? But he manifests those skills of knowledge and science. Not that, okay, he's a 7-year-old, so we just accept it as a 7-year-old and he's doing, but he's manifesting. The history have recorded that he's an imam for a reason. But that imamat is chosen by God because he has raised himself to that level. Right? The Abu Basir, the story I was telling, in regards to that irfani aspect where he accepts to that wilayat, once again is that the aspect where he jumps into the oven. When he comes, Abu Basir, to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and those people who said to Imam Sadiq, let's topple the khilafat of Umayyun, it's weak now and we will become the king. And they said, okay, Abu Basir comes. Abu Basir, when he comes, the oven was lit. Imam said, Abu Basir, jump into the oven. He just jumps into the oven, which was lit with fire. Of these people who were proposing the Imam that, let's join hands and take the khilafat, they were like restless. What's going on? What's happening to him? He's kebab by now perhaps, right? But Imam, after conversing with them, Imam opens up the oven. Abu Basir came out without any sort of fire burning him, like Ibrahim, who was tossed in the fire of Namrud. Then he asked, how many of the followers of mine are like this? He said, no. It's okay, Bismillah. Don't let me do what I'm doing. I'm happy with what I'm doing. This is my responsibility now. Only Imam Hussein had those, not even Imam Hassan or any other Imams. So imamat is that, where the servitude, we have to surrender to the will of Imam. Imam Zaman, when he comes, is like that. We accept whatever he says. We have to give in everything, if it be so. That's what the ashab of Imam Hussein did. It might not make sense, but that's what they did. Right? Because when we recite in Dua Rajab, the dua which begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rajab have loads of duas. Duas are ways that the Imams have taught us. Duas has its own chemistry in itself, but it's a lesson. Are hidden in there. لا فرق بينك وبينها إلا عبادك وخلقك. There isn't any difference between him and them. Except that there's illa. Obviously, that's why we are not Nusayris. إِلَّا إِبَادُكَ وَخَلْقُكَ, except that they are the servants and creation of God. But when it comes to their reality, for us to understand, for us to have that marifat, for us to have that ubudiyah towards them, although we worship God, ubudiyah in the technical sense of surrendering, to their command, in that sense, we worship God. We do sajda to God, not to them. We worship Allah. We don't worship Ahl Bayt. But in terms of what we are supposed to do, our responsibility, لا فرق بينك وبينها إلا عبادك وخلقك. That's how they are. This is dua Mafatihul Jinnah. We all have. We all have this Mafatihul Jinnah. In Dua Rajab, which begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this dua comes from the 12th Imam to his Naib Khas, Ziyarat Ali Yasin. Antumul awwal wa antumul akhir. We address the Imam, and what do we tell him? We say, you are the first and you are the last. Huwal awwal wa huwal akhir. God is the first and God is the last. But we are addressing the Imam and saying, Antumul awwal wa antumul akhir. That's the Imam. That's the station of Imam. It might not, it's a bit difficult to digest perhaps, but that is the reality. There's such a sirr, secret in the existence of the Imam that we cannot comprehend. Awwaluna Muhammad, Awsatuna Muhammad, Akhiruna Muhammad, Kulluna Muhammad. And nobody understands who Muhammad is except Ali and God. Right? That sir is there. That secret is there. As the Sufi says, if you want to see God, look towards Muhammad. Right? There's a famous poetry, Ali ko dekha, Nabi ko dekha, Nabi ko dekha, Khuda ko dekha. Very famous poetry of Sufi. If you see Ali, it's as if you have seen Rasul. If you have seen Rasul, it's as if you have seen God. Right? That sir is there, that secret. So when we are talking about ubudiyat, servitude, without imamat is incomplete. The wilayat and imamat has to be there. That's a complete cycle of ubudiyat. Then only one will be able to understand what tawheed is. Because it goes back to tawheed. The way Imam introduces tawheed, the way Imam teaches what God is, what tawheed is, no one can. And that is why we are, under the command, under the wing. That is why we believe in imamat. Because imams are teaching us what tawheed is, what true tawheed is. Hasan Zadeh Amali, a great mystique of our time, he says Ibn Arabi, who's known as a Sheikh al-Akbar, the foundation of school of Irfan is Ibn Arabi. Right? Although all the chains of tariqat goes back to Amirul Mu'mineen and other imams as well, but when it comes to compilation of Irfan in the form of books and treatises and so on and so forth, it was Ibn Arabi. Hasan Zadeh Amali, and his books are taught in the Hawza, in seminaries, Fusus, Futuhat, and some of his treatises are taught in. Hasan Zadeh says that Ibn Arabi have reached to high level of mukashifat, unveiling of the realities. Either he was aware of Saif Sajjadiyah, or with his own servitude, because he was from a Sunni maslak, right? Although he claims to meet the Imam Zaman as well while doing the tawaf in Futuhat Makkiyah. He's talking about meeting the Imam, right? Because Imam is the khutb, Imam is the pole, right? Where all reality, everything is through him, right? Which we discussed. So, what I'm trying to say is that what Ibn Arabi is writing in regards to the awalim tawheedi, in regards to the levels of tawheed and ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is sublime ma'rifah for the Sufiye, right? Hasan Zadeh says that he's a fascinating figure. Although our ulama criticize, him, but at the same time have that respect. In the Western academia, when we criticize something, if Fatiha is recited on him, he's gone. He's gone. Everything is gone. It's Fatiha recited for him. But in the Islamic academia, when you criticize them, you have that respect for him. You criticize their research in regards to fiqh or whatever, but when that respect is there, you have that respect for him. So Hassan Zadeh says yes. Either he was aware of some of the du'as of Sayyid Sajjadiyah, right? Or maybe, he was doing taqiyya. So he has tried and strived from whatever knowledge he had, and things were unveiled to him. Mukashifat were given to him. So the imams are there for us to teach us tawheed. That is the purpose of the imamat. To introduce what is tawheed, what is oneness of God. So the more we learn about tawheed, the more ubudiyah we will manifest, the more servitude we'll have in us. We'll have that ma'rifat. Right? So it is not by the actions are there, pain is there, all of these things are required. But sometimes the sleep of an abid, meaning that who have that true ibadat, is better than 70 years of ibadat of a person who doesn't know his worshiping. Right? So it goes back to that spirit, that ma'rifat, that understanding of Allah. Through practice, the teachings that have reached to us by the Quran, the secrets are there in the Quran that we do not know. We cannot really take them out. We cannot tailor it. Ha-mim. Tonight we recite this. Alif, lam, mim. Well, it doesn't make sense. Take this out. Don't read this. Just read those verses which make sense. We don't know what is ha-mim. We don't know what's alif, lam, mim. God knows. He has to put that there. So that is why the jurists, they try their level best not to escape. Right? And they try to kind of expand whatever the way possible, so that we don't know what is the hidden reality or secret behind these things. From an outward form, it might look like something that doesn't belong to us or doesn't make sense, but there is something merciful behind that. There is something secretive behind that we are unaware of. So we got to be very careful there. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدْ وَعَلَيْهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ. We'll open up the floor for question and answer, inshallah. Salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
So we'll get started with questions. Who would like to start us off? Okay, now you can hear me. So we'll get started with questions. Does anyone want to start us off? They're all thinking about how much to donate tonight.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
You use the word suffering in order to elevate your soul, in order to get the ma'rifah of the reality. I understand where you're coming from, but in English language, would it be more appropriate to say you need to struggle, you need that hard work, only then you will be able, it doesn't come out by sitting idly and doing zikr only?
Yes, that is correct. That could be the right way of putting it, that where a person have to do hard work. But God, in His mysterious ways, tests us with sending something that makes it much harder, so to speak. One that could be seen. I think there was a question in regards to imtihan and suffering, imtihan and azab, or imtihan and suffering. So it's part and parcel of that. It's hard. If we say that, okay, if you are faced with something which needs more hard work, but maybe suffering could, correct me if I'm wrong, what I've understood is that suffering could be a negative term to be used. That's what I think it's if we could use hard work, for example, But, yeah, we could say that, but there is some sort of pain and difficulty. That pain has to be there. I remember, but it's very sweet. Let me give you one example. There's the Amal Bismillah Rahman Rahim. It's very mujarrab. The whole Quran, you recite Bismillah Rahman Rahim on every verse, from Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Alhamdulillah, the Surah Ham, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman, till Nas, the big whole Quran. Every verse you recite Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. After finishing maybe Surah Baqarah, you don't feel your finger. It's gone. Little while, the whole hand is gone. It's numb. And then gradually, after finishing the whole Quran, then your normal working, thing starts to come back. It's very painful. But as soon as that pain comes, what an action, what an act you have done. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's so sweet, right? It's very sweet. It's suffering, it's painful, but at the same time, you have that element of sweetness. It's hard work, but there's something unique about it. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I really appreciated when you explained the ubudiyah of Allah and the ubudiyah of the imam. It's two separate things that has to be really comprehended by the community. Many a time we see that we pray directly to the imams, not realizing, not that we are literally praying to them, but we tend to do that because of the importance that it's put from the pulpit to the people. And I really appreciate what you did. Now let's come to imama. When imama finishes, we have the ijtihad. And that's, isn't it?
Yes.
Not that it finishes,
Yes,
but to
yes, that's right.
continue, to continue the work, because there's still confusion by us who are least sort of conversant with the knowledge. So could you a little bit explain to us how that came about?
Yes. Good question, very practical as well, particularly to our time. Imam has not finished, the Imam is there, and Imam, as the riwayat clearly points out, to guiding it's like a sun behind the cloud, how he guides, right? Then you have the fuqaha, those who are well versed in the Quran, well versed in the traditions and narrations of the Imams, as they fall short in terms of approaching directly to the Imam and asking the Imam, they themselves deduct on the basis of the knowledge that they have. And when they are faced with certain issues that does not exist within the Quran or with direct, the word very important, within the Quran and in the riwayat. So they use those principles. Like for example, there is a principle called qaid la haraj. And the Quran also talks about in fasting. God doesn't want haraj. God doesn't want pain and difficulty for you, right? So this is used as a principle, right? So the scholar would use this as a principle, and when he faces, for example, a practical reality, an affair, he would say that, okay, God doesn't want haraj in principle, you could carry on this action which you're doing, for instance. Now, discerning that is a bit technical, that's for example, organ donation, right? So for a period of time, there's nothing, we don't have any riwayat, we don't have any direct ayats mentioning that you could donate organ, or the imam saying that you could donate organ. But the mujtahid would come about, and he would use the principle saying that if you save one life, it is as if saving all of humanity. So by giving that organ, you're saving someone's life, so it is allowed for you. That's the work of that judge or jurist. To be in line with the will of God, with what God wants. So how do we understand what God wants for us in regards to organ donation? Well, it's common sense. Well, good, that's one. But is there any concrete proof as well that we could exercise? Well, there's a verse of the Quran which says that if you save one life, it is as if saving all of humanity. Then I could say that, okay, my case is presented, my case is accepted. So the fuqaha, the jurist, they are able to really, deduct that. Yeah.
After the imam?
No, the mujtahids were already there during the time of the imams themselves as well. The wukala, those were the representatives of the imam in different cities, when they were approaching the Imam for every little thing, Imam wrote a letter that, do you have Quran? He said, yes. Do you have the narrations of my fathers or the Imams? They say, yes. So, answer it. Why do you approach us, all the time? And they were in heavy surveillance, and they were house arrest, and they were in trouble. So the Imam have kind of like prepared the following, the Shias, to really come up with this methodology of ijtihad. And it's been carrying on since. Wajib in the sense that it's wajib to follow the Imam. And the scholar or the jurist, what he's doing is that he's just representing the will of the Quran and the will of what what the Imam wants. That's why we are following him. Right? He's basing his research or ijtihad on the narrations of the Imam and on the Quran. And on, for example, aql as well he uses, all of those 4 elements that are there. Right? That's why we are following him. It's like wajib in that sense of the word. Yeah. Instead of me doing something, I say that, okay, because he is the lawyer or he is the jurist, so I'm following him for that reason. Yeah.
Just following on from that discussion, a skeptic might say that, we use our reasoning to say that, this is really how it should be, and, it should be allowable or within religion. And then we try to justify it sort of through the back door. Then, yeah, this is really what it is. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That sometimes, it makes sense, this is how it should be.
Right.
And then we try to come up with reasons as
To justify what we are doing.
To justify.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes, what you're saying exactly makes sense.
It's
yeah.
not the other way around. Not the
Right.
other way around, going from the Quran to say this is what it is.
Right.
But we do it, we
Yes.
say this is what it is, and this is how we justify
Yeah.
it from the Quran.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's...
I'm just going to explain the azan.
Oh.
There's another program there,
Okay,
so their azan is going on right now.
Can we
so
join
we
them?
still have 12 minutes. I'd gladly do that.
Can continue, is that okay? Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it should be the other way around, but we don't know. We are thinking that way. I mean, a jurist would really is able to answer that, whether he is justifying, that by using the Quran and Sunnah, or he's really surrendering to the Quran and then thinking about it. For example, you have Sheikh Hilli. He had a well in his house, and in those time, well was like amazing. So he shuts the well down, closes it, and then sits to write the fatwa on whether the well water is pure or not. So he doesn't want to justify that the well water is pure, there is a flow and things like that. He shuts it down, so he wants to be at peace of mind. And then he approaches the issue. So it's basically the jurist. That's why they say the maraja, he should be muttaqi. One of the conditions is that he should be pious. He should be God-fearing. Not that he justifies it somehow, for his benefit or for convenience sake, for example.
So unfortunately, that was the last question. I'm going to ask Ithrat to come up and say a few words. She's going to give us an update